Thank you, Connie. Thank you, Connie Village, for what you're doing for pay equity and for working families generally. Councilwoman Mills, thanks for your service in Columbus and at St. Stephen's and all that you're doing. And State Representative Foley is making a huge difference by helping to change the debate and get people to pay attention to minimum wage in this town, in the State House, and across the state. Tracy Watkins has, nobody should work as hard as Tracy Watkins does and make only $8 or $9 an hour. It's really as simple as that. It's not just she's working hard, it's the important job she's doing. She's taking care of sick people, she's taking care of people in hospice care, she's taking care of people end of life, she's bringing comfort to families that are anxious and that are scared, and she's a steady hand, and she doesn't make a living wage, and that's just outrageous. The minimum wage today has 30% buying power than the minimum wage did in 1968. 30% less buying power. In 1968, a husband and wife, both making minimum wage, could make a living where they could kind of get by. Today, that's simply not the case. That's why the efforts in Ohio to raise the tip wage to $10.10, the efforts in Washington to raise the minimum wage to $10.10, those efforts are so important. This was bipartisan 7 years ago. 2007, Congress bipartisanly passed, President Bush signed the increase in the minimum wage. There's no reason that Republicans can't join Democrats at the State House, downtown, and in Washington. There's no reason that Republicans can't join Democrats to increase the minimum wage, to put a cost of living adjustment for the first time as part of the minimum wage, so we don't have to go back every couple of years as people like Tracy fall further and further behind because the minimum wage doesn't keep up with inflation. And the third thing in that bill is we're going to raise, if we can convince enough people in the House of Representatives to vote on it, we're taking it up in the Senate the next week or two, and that is to increase the tipped minimum wage. The tipped minimum wage in the country, it's a little higher in Ohio, but nationally, federal law, the tip minimum wage is $2.13, and it's been stuck at $2.13 since 1991. That's not just people at a diner, working at a diner. It's people pushing wheelchairs at airports, it's valets, it's workers that supposedly are getting tips, but the tips for some reason don't often, even though they're supposed to legally, don't often get that worker up to even the $7.25 minimum wage. We know what we do. We know what this will mean for working families. As Connie said, with pay equity, in this case, a couple $1,000s, a $2 increase, a $3 increase in minimum wage will be $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. Imagine what a low-income family can do with that for their kids, for their parents, for themselves, for their families. And it's not just what the minimum wage. I like Tracy, I live in Cleveland, and there are lots of neighborhoods in Cleveland where housing has declined because people simply aren't making enough money to do what they need to do to keep their houses in shape and to do what you need to do for your neighborhood. So raising the minimum wage is not just for Tracy and not just Tracy's family. Raising the minimum wages will also make a difference in the neighborhoods where they live. They'll spend the money at the local grocery store. They'll spend that increase in the getting their car fixed. They're not going to take that $2 an hour minimum wage increase and park it in a Swiss bank account. They're going to spend it in Cleveland. They're going to spend it in Columbus. They're going to spend it in Cincinnati. And think what that does to the economy as a whole. 1936, President Roosevelt, running for his second term, was in Tracy's in my hometown. We weren't around then, even though Foley's math might think we were, in 1936. He said, it's to the real advantage of every producer, every manufacturer, every merchant to cooperate in the improvement for workers because the best customer of American industry is the well-paid worker. 100 years ago this year, Henry Ford made a decision, announced he was going to pay every one of his workers, the janitor and the auto assembler, he was going to pay each of them $5 a day. Other companies were upset. Other industrialists were pretty angry at Henry Ford, but he knew one thing. He didn't necessarily do out of the kindness of his heart. He knew if you put $5 in those days, or $10 or $12 or $15 an hour today into workers' pockets, they would spend that money, that would grow the economy, more more people would be able to buy more things, and we'd see more job growth. So minimum wage is about people like Tracy Watkins and people that are making $7 and $8 and $9 and $10 and $11 an hour. But minimum wage also is about a better economy, so all of us can do better in this country. That's the importance of this bus tour. That's the importance of Tracy being here and Councilwoman Mills and Representatives Filich and Foley. This is going to matter for our country. It's important that all of you continue to be so engaged and push our Congress and our legislature to do the right thing. Thanks.